Right now, you're probably feeling it. The grocery bill that keeps climbing, the rent that won't stop going up, gas, utilities, insurance, everything costs more, but your paycheck? It feels stuck. And you're not alone. Millions of Americans are quietly struggling, choosing between bills and basics, wondering how much longer they can hold on. And that's why this question matters so much today. Is the government really considering a $2,000 stimulus check in 2026? Or is this just another headline that gets your hopes up and disappears? Because if that money actually comes, it could mean groceries, rent, medicine, or even just breathing room for your family. But if it doesn't, you deserve to know the truth, not the hype. So today, I'm breaking down what's real, what's rumor, what's being discussed behind closed doors, and what could realistically happen next. This video is about your money, your future, and what you should be watching right now. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the wait for it moment later in this video, because that part changes everything. Why people are even talking about stimulus again. Let's be honest, stimulus checks were supposed to be temporary, emergency support during crisis moments. But here's the problem. For millions of Americans, the crisis never really ended. Here's what's pushing this conversation back into the spotlight. Prices are still high, even when inflation slows down. Credit card debt is at record levels. Savings are shrinking for middle-class families. Seniors on fixed incomes are feeling squeezed. Rent and housing costs remain brutal in many states. So even though the economy looks okay on paper, everyday people don't feel okay in real life. And when enough people start feeling financial pressure at the same time, politicians start feeling political pressure. That's when stimulus talk starts popping up again. Not because leaders suddenly became generous, but because voters are hurting. So the main problem is simple. People are struggling and existing programs aren't covering the gap. That's why relief payments are being whispered about again, not as a guarantee, but as a possible tool if things get worse or if election year pressure grows stronger. What this economy is doing to your wallet. Let's slow this down and talk about what this really means for you and your family. Even small monthly increases, groceries, utilities, insurance, add up fast. And when wages don't rise at the same speed, your budget gets tighter and tighter. Here's how that hits real people. Families cutting back on food quality, parents delaying doctor visits, seniors choosing between medicine and groceries, workers taking on debt just to survive. This isn't luxury spending. This is survival spending, and that's why stimulus rumors spread so fast, because people are desperate for relief, not handouts, but breathing room. So when headlines say $2,000 stimulus check may be coming, it grabs attention because it represents hope. Not wealth, just stability. But hope alone doesn't pay bills. That's why we need to talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes, and not just what social media is screaming about. Where did the $2,000 number even come from? This part is important because a lot of people think the $2,000 number just appeared out of nowhere. It didn't. During earlier relief programs, many proposals and public campaigns pushed for $2,000 payments instead of smaller amounts. That number stuck in people's minds as the real help level, not enough to fix everything, but enough to make a dent. So when new economic worries rise, that same number comes back into conversations. But here's the truth. Right now, there is no official national bill passed guaranteeing $2,000 checks in 2026. What exists instead are public discussions, political proposals, advocacy campaigns, state-level relief experiments, and sometimes trial balloons floated to test public reaction. So when you hear stimulus is coming, what you're really hearing is pressure building, not policy already signed. What politicians are actually debating right now. Behind closed doors, the conversation is less about checks and more about strategy. Lawmakers are focused on budget deficits. National debt inflation risks voter sentiment heading into elections. Some leaders argue that sending out more checks could increase inflation again. Others argue that not helping struggling families could hurt the economy even more. So the debate isn't simple generosity versus cruelty. It's politics, economics, and public pressure colliding at the same time. What does that mean for you? It means relief isn't guaranteed, but it also isn't impossible. Historically, stimulus only happens when three things line up. Economic pain becomes visible. Political pressure grows, public support becomes loud, and right now, all three of those are quietly building again. Wait, this is where things get interesting. Okay, this is where you really want to pay attention. Even when federal stimulus stalls, something else often happens. States and local governments start stepping in with their own relief programs. We've already seen examples of state rebates, energy relief payments, child tax credits at local levels, targeted assistance for low-income households. These aren't called stimulus checks, but they act like them. And here's the key point most people miss. Federal action isn't the only way money can reach your wallet. So while everyone waits for Washington, smaller programs are quietly rolling out across the country. And many people don't even know they qualify, which means the real question isn't just, is $2,000 coming? It's also, are you already missing money you could be getting right now? Who would likely qualify if payments did happen? If stimulus ever does return, it probably won't look exactly like before. Most proposals now focus on targeted relief, not blanket checks for everyone. That usually means low to middle income households, families with children, seniors on fixed incomes, disabled individuals, workers in high-cost areas. So not everyone would automatically receive money, and income limits would almost certainly apply. That's why staying informed matters, because when programs roll out, they often move fast. And if you're not paying attention, deadlines pass before you even know help existed. Mini summary so far. No guaranteed $2,000 check, but real financial pressure is rising. And targeted relief programs are already happening in different forms. And now we get to the part most people completely misunderstand. Why social media is making this sound 100% confirmed. Let's talk about why your feed is exploding with stimulus-confirmed posts. A lot of viral content mixes together. Old proposals, hypothetical bills, political speeches, out-of-context headlines. Then they turn it into payment approved for clicks and views. And while some creators genuinely misunderstand, others know exactly what they're doing, pushing hope because hope spreads faster than reality. But the danger is this. People start counting on money that isn't actually scheduled. That can affect financial decisions, bills, and planning. And that's not fair to you. So if you ever hear stimulus guaranteed, your first question should always be, where is the signed law? Where is the official agency confirmation? Until then, it's speculation, not policy. Economic warning, signs that could change everything. Now here's the part that could flip this story fast. If we see major economic shifts like rising unemployment, market instability, banking stress, housing market downturns, that's when emergency relief becomes politically acceptable again. Because at that point, the cost of doing nothing becomes higher than the cost of helping, and economists are already watching certain indicators very closely. So while today there's no check approved, the situation can change rapidly if conditions worsen. That's why these updates matter, not to sell false hope, but to track real risk. What you should be doing right now, important. Whether stimulus comes or not, there are smart steps you should take today. Here's what actually protects your wallet. Make sure your tax filings are accurate and current. Keep your address updated with government agencies. Watch for state and local benefit programs. Track energy, food, and housing assistance options. Avoid relying on unverified social media claims, because when relief programs open, they often rely on existing records. If your information is outdated, payments can be delayed or missed completely. Stimulus helps most when you're prepared to receive it. Why official announcements come late? Many people ask, why don't they tell us sooner? Because governments don't announce payments until budgets are approved, legal language is finalized, funding sources are locked. Until then, everything stays in discussion mode. So silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means nothing is finalized yet. And unfortunately, that gap is where rumors thrive, which is why channels like this exist to separate conversation from confirmation. This is the real power shift. Here's the part most people don't realize. Public pressure actually works. When enough voters talk about financial strain, it forces politicians to respond, especially during election cycles. And right now, financial stress is one of the top concerns nationwide. So while checks aren't approved today, the political climate is becoming more favorable for some form of relief discussion. That doesn't mean guaranteed payments, but it does mean the conversation is not over. And that's powerful. What history tells us about surprise payments? Every past stimulus had one thing in common. Most people didn't believe it would happen until it suddenly did. Relief packages often move fast once triggered. Weeks of silence, then rapid legislation. So watching trends matters more than trusting rumors. And those trends right now, they're not calm. They're uncertain, which is exactly when governments start preparing backup plans. What could happen next in 2026? Here are realistic possibilities: targeted tax credits instead of direct checks, energy or housing rebates, child-focused benefits, state-driven relief expansions, emergency response if economy dips. So even if the exact $2,000 number never appears, money could still reach families through other paths, and that still affects your wallet, which means staying informed isn't optional. It's financial survival strategy. Let me leave you with this. Right now, no one can promise you a $2,000 check, but what we can say is this: financial pressure is real, political pressure is rising, and relief discussions are not going away. And when programs do appear, whether federal or state, the people who benefit are the ones who stayed informed and acted fast. This isn't just news. This is your money, your family, your future. So if you want real updates, not fake hype, if you want to know when help becomes real, not just rumored, if you want to protect your wallet in uncertain times, then make sure you stay connected, stay alert, and stay informed. Because in 2026, every dollar matters, and missing out could cost you more than you think. Subscribe, stay tuned, and I'll keep bringing you the updates that actually matter to your life.